again. So I don't know that came out on the last one when it took us by surprise. And I sort of listened to it back. I didn't hear this meeting is being recorded. Much the same as this one. So if you didn't hear that, there's a little alert that comes up on your thing now saying this meeting's being recorded. So you
There's a shit out of you.
So you can't like secret record stuff. And yeah, I was half expecting it and then I forgot about it and it scared me again. Yeah. So there you go. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Knuggets. This is actually episode 21. We missed episode 20, like the announcement of 20 last
21?
We're at number 21. We've done 21 of these. Currently doing 21. How mad is that? We've found enough shit to talk about through 21 episodes of this. Like, I've also just realised I'm on the wrong view. There we go. That's better. We put it on that view. And now it records and it's not just looking at me. That's got on gallery view, you see. For the people watching this on YouTube, there you go. It's all about that. Anyway, let's stop talking bollocks. I mean, we're going to spend the next sort of 20 minutes, half an hour talking bollocks, but enough about the Zoom ladies recording this meeting voice. Let's do that. Anyway, I put out a thing on Instagram the other day. Basically, we haven't done a Q&A for a little while. Normally, we just sort of jump on and talk about things that have upset us in the industry that week, or that month, or that however long a time period between these meetings we go before we actually do another meeting. I should also say that normally I'm in the gym on my own, but we change the time when the gym's still open, so there's a couple of people training. So if you hear people hurling abuse at me or like things clunking around, it's because they're training. So that's the thing. I actually had a really good question. I had a lot of shit questions. Mainly like, would you rather fight one horse-sized duck or 12 duck-sized horses, which we'll revisit later. I'll let you think on that one. But I had a really good question. There's someone messaged in, and I've forgotten who it was, so my apologies, but someone messaged me and sort of like talking about training plateaus. So they're strength training, they've hit a plateau in strength. They can't get any further along. It's really, really common. So I figured this would be a decent opportunity to like tackle that. And that sort of swings into both of our worlds. So like it swings into my world of like getting stronger and moving through training progressions, but also in yours in terms of kind of like weight loss, weight gain, like dietary progressions. So I figure this could actually, this runs the risk of being a fairly helpful podcast. So I don't think we dive straight into that. That could be a thing. So in terms of like training plateaus, there's a number of reasons they happen. Usually your body's just, the stimulus you're applying to your training is kind of run out, your body's used to it, for want of a better way of putting it. So the easiest way and like the most broad answer I could give you is just do something different, which I appreciate doesn't help an awful lot, but we'll dig into that a little bit further. And I think that's the same in your world, if I'm right in saying, if you've hit a sort of dietary plateau, just change shit up. Is that about accurate?
Yeah.
There you go. Awesome. Conversation done. Yep, that. I'll let you got an actual cup. I've got a paper cup. It's also an espresso cup, so it makes my hands look normal size. It's good. So with training plateaus, there's a few bits that you could do to break through it. Like one of them is just add more variables to your training. So the person that asked me, I'm pretty sure they were a strongman. Again, I'm saying this because I've forgotten because they messaged me the other day and I've been asleep since then. But I think they were a strongman. And frankly, it doesn't matter. You can be strongman, powerlifter, weightlifter, general gym rat. It doesn't really matter. The kind of theory around this is the same. Just change your shit up. So that could be change the number of sets and reps you do, change the weight you're doing, change your recovery thing, change the exercises you're doing, add more variables to your stuff. So just for a broad example, if you're stuck on a 100 kilo deadlift, if you come into sessions and you're 5x5s and you do deadlifts at 100 kilos, just for real simple figures, if there's anything more complicated than that, I'm going to trip up because I'm stupid. But if you're coming through, there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can either, what I would generally suggest to people is just add more variation to your lifts. So rather than just coming and doing your deadlifts, add a different variable, wider stance, narrow grip, split stance, different load, like offset loads. Use dumbbells, don't use barbells. Rest for a couple of days and do some more like higher reps on various other bits and pieces. Do something that's going to work with similar sort of muscles on different exercises. Add variables to a thing. That's going to help you push through. Other way of doing it is kind of try and force overload. So if you do your 5 sets of 5 at 100 kilos, do your first 4 sets, and then on your last set, add like 105, and you might get 3 out. Give yourself 20, 30 seconds rest, and then do the other 2. Or stick with your 100 kilos and aim for like 8 reps. Do your 5, put the bar down, wait a few minutes or a few seconds, and then do your next few reps. Like start forcing that overload, and you'll start seeing that change. It's not instant. You're not just going to start break at 100 kilos for 6 weeks, and then all of a sudden be 150 kilos. That's not how this works. It's all things you've got to kind of push through. It probably took you a while to build to that 100 kilos, so don't expect to break through it that quick. But that's a couple of kind of ideas. Add variables or just force that over to the end of your sets for kind of training protocols. Again, we can kind of revisit that again a little bit and go a bit more into depth. But what's your kind of shout on that in a nutrition perspective?
Yeah, so with strength training plateaus, it's usually because people aren't willing to put body fat on. That's generally the problem. People try and stay lean and get stronger, which you can, like at maintenance, but it's more difficult. So if you really want to break through a plateau, you've got to give yourself permission to get bigger and eat more, basically. More prevalent in females than males, I would say, naturally. But with males, like, we see it loads. Like, yeah, I want to stay shredded, but I also want to get stronger. Pick one. You can have both, but just over a long period of time, you can't have them both at the same time. So that's why we talk about like periodizing the work you're doing in terms of training, but also nutrition. Like if you're periodizing training to really peak and get stronger through a certain phase, but then you're also not periodizing your nutrition to help you with that, then what's the point? Like if you're periodizing trying to get as strong as fuck, but then periodizing a massive calorie deficit at the same time, well, no wonder you're not progressing. So yeah, I think give yourself, providing you're doing the basics and assuming you're doing the basics of getting enough protein in throughout the day to aid muscle mass, fueling sessions, etc., then give yourself more food will be the main recommendation.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those, it seems to be the obvious thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think people look for a more complicated answer. I think that's kind of undercuts what we do in this anyway. It's like just trying to uncomplicate stuff. Because it's really easy to overcomplicate it. You could come to me and say, I've plateaued on my training. I can go like, oh, wow, we need to go through all this. I can start talking about all equations and sciencey bullshit that no one really cares about. And you're going to put it in here and you go, that's really interesting. And then it all comes out here. And you've forgotten everything that I've talked about. And you just continue on your plateau doing shit. It's really easy to overcomplicate stuff. And like the best advice I was ever given as an athlete was just like, find the simplest route. It was like, if you were trying to drive from like, I don't know, if I was driving from me in Windsor, darling, to you in Brizzle, my lover,
Brizzle Bab,
I'd probably jump on the M4. I probably wouldn't go via Newcastle.
No.
Because like that feels like a really hard route. Go straight up and then down again. I'd probably just cut straight across. Like that's the obvious route, but loads of people look to go to Newcastle before they head up to Bristol because it's more complicated, therefore it's probably wrong.
Yeah.
Makes sense? That's a really shit analogy, but I think it makes sense.
Yeah, it's something like a mental model called Occam's razor, where if there's loads of explanations for something happening, the simplest one is usually right. Yeah. And that's generally the case with training and nutrition, that generally, simplest one, like people, like with weight loss, for example, they're like, oh, well, maybe my metabolism's damaged, or maybe there's been metabolic adaptation, or maybe I'm like some way special. Probably just because you're not being as adherent as you think you are, or as long as you need to be in some way, whether that's like not tracking certain foods and not weighing out certain foods, or putting more oil in, or more butter, or like more fats, or cooking pasta for a family of 6 like I do. Like whatever it is, you're probably just not being as accurate as you think you are.
I mean, it's one packet, one serving, right?
I think so.
Basically, what Charlie's trying to say there is you're not special.
Genuinely, you're not.
Probably not. But to be fair, you're probably not. Like, my favourite one, someone said the metabolism is too slow, therefore they can't possibly lose weight. I was like, it's not though, is it? Like, your metabolism's not slow, just your fork's really fast. And you're just not that conscious about what's going on. It's kind of it.
Yeah. How much do you move in a day? I probably do about 300 steps per day, but my metabolism is broken. Yeah. You probably just don't have many calories to, like, your deficit's going to be tiny because you just don't burn many calories. Yeah. Like when people say, oh, 1,200, 1,400 calories, 1,500 calories is enough for a toddler, that's right. But if someone's like 5 foot and they don't move, that's actually not far off what they're going to need. So for any other dwarves out there, then you're probably just not eating enough calories. But you're not moving enough to get more calories in.
Yeah, pretty much. It is that simple. Again, it's the whole, like, it's really easy to overcomplicate it. But like, ultimately, it really does just tend to boil down to calories in, calories out. That's kind of it. There are very, very few exceptions to that rule. Virtually fucking none. But unless you've got some obscure like illness. But
Yeah, it still comes down, even then it comes down to calories in versus calories out. It's just the goalposts are moved. So like menopause would be an example or polycystic ovary syndrome, where it's still energy in versus energy out, but like part of those equations is changed. So basal metabolic rate in people with PCOS is lower. So therefore the amount of energy they expend is lower through no fault of their own, part of a condition. It still comes down to energy in versus energy out, which means they have to be in a bigger deficit than equations would normally tell them in order to see progress. The equation's still the same, it's just the nuance within those equations changes.
Yeah, basically, yeah. That kind of tails into the same, like going back to the training plateaus. All of those things also have an effect. Feel like with nutrition, it's a little easier to kind of control that, because you can kind of keep an eye on it, you can track, you can see exactly what you're putting through. It's really hard to get an exact stimulus of what you're doing to your body in training. So ultimately, as strength athletes, we spend our lives chasing kilos. It's basically what we do. So you put kilos on your bar, it's a visual progression. If you lift up 100 kilos and that's where you sort of stop, and then the next week you pick up 105, you've got stronger. It's visual. But then those plateaus come and they're really hard to get through because you've kind of gone through those points. And I find it a lot with new athletes, or like new lifters, people brand new into lifting, be that Olympic lifting, powerlifting, strongman, or just general gym rattery. Like, you find you get real fast gains at the start because all of a sudden it's a really new stimulus for your body. You've never done it. So like every week you're smashing PBs and you're getting stronger and you're getting better and all that sort of stuff because you're learning the skill, your body's adapted to that stimulus. And then it stops because you've gotten used to it. And this is turning back to what we said at the start. So surely then, just applying the logic to it, this is ignoring any kind of like research and science that have gone into it. Purely anecdotally, you can apply some logic to that and say, well, when I first started training, it was all new and I got really, really strong, really, really quick because it was new. So why don't I try something new now? And that's just changed the stimulus. And like I said, that could be just change the exercise. There's any number of things. Like a deadlift doesn't just have to be a deadlift. Like a deadlift is pick a weight from the floor to your hips. But you don't have to do that with a barbell. That could be dumbbells. It could be kettlebells. You could do that with a really narrow stance, a really wide stance. You can do that with staggered stance. You do it with one leg. You can offset the load on the bar. You can do it in like any number of different ways. Turn your toes in. That makes it a lot more glutey. Turn your toes out. Like any different things you can do. Just change it a little bit. And it will have a profound effect on the actual lift. And therefore the skill, and therefore you get better, you get stronger. So there's those. The other way of looking at it as well is through your actual programming. So I don't know, if you're following a program, awesome. If you're not, and you just kind of go to the gym because you feel like training and you sort of go through and feel like what feels good on the day, awesome. Like, you're both right, but just try and have be mindful about what you're lifting. Like, tracking workouts is the same as tracking like food. It can be a ball ache, but if you're trying to see where you're at, it's probably a good idea to do it. And how I program here, we'll do like a sort of staggered linear progression. So you have linear and undulating progressions. Undulating is a little bit like sort of up and downy. Linear would be like straight point A to point B. That's your line. Both work to a point. But what we'll do here, we'll have like a 4-week thing, but we'll hit cliffs. So we'll have like week 1 is like your beginner, then week 2, week 3, week 4. And then we'll cliff at week 5, back down to like that first block, week 2. That makes sense? So like block 1, week 1 to 4, block 2, week 5 to 8, and so on. You'll have like the kind of weights be 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you're still going in the upward line. So if you draw a line from week 1 to week 12, it's still an upward progression, but you're hit with those cliffs. And those cliffs allow your body to change the stimulus a little bit. So you drop the weights down, you go back to where you were, a little bit more skill development. And they also allow you to recover a little bit. So then you start building up again. But you're forcing that progression through over a longer period. So you're not just doing that in the session, like I said at the start, where you throw 5 kilos on and see how many reps you get at the end of it. You're doing effectively the same, but you're dragging that over a 3-month period. So does that make sense? That kind of longer term thing. We're all in this for a long time. I would assume so. If you're doing strength sports and you fucking hate it, stop now, because it's a miserable route to go down. You have to do this because you enjoy it. And if you enjoy it, I therefore presume you want to be in this for a long time. Not just like a little bit. I want to get really fucking strong now, and then I'm never doing this again. Like, that feels like a really bad idea. So like taking that time to hit a year-long program isn't that big of an investment, because that time's going to pass anyway. You're going to do it. You might as well enjoy it. So like add those things in. Just take the time to do it right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a couple of points you've made there. One of them is like when people move from being beginners to no longer beginners. Like sometimes people aren't even in a plateau. They're just not seeing progress at the same rate they used to. So actually, the first question is, are you actually plateauing? Like, how long does it have to be before it's a plateau?
Yeah, or have you just slowed down? Which is also a thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then the other point that I've now forgotten that I was going to make, I'm going to keep talking until it comes back to me, because I imagine it will come back to me at some point.
That's adverts.
Is that like, numbers isn't the only way of making progress. So how the lift feels, technique on the lift, all of those things. So like when you see someone do a horrible like half squat, say, oh, that's my new PB. Fine if you want to call that a PB and say that that's progress, but actually progress might now be getting that to depth or a little bit lower than like parallel. So like the numbers aren't the only way of progressing.
Yeah.
And actually looking at those other areas of, is this as tight as it could be from a technique perspective, is a good way of measuring progress as you get more intermediate with lifting.
100%. That's really important to note as well. It's really important. I feel like a lot of people, and I've sort of coined myself into it, so thank you for pulling back on that one. With the whole, like, we chase kilos, we do, and we all want to put more weight on the bar. But yeah, the technique is equally important. I don't know, I'm not saying if you lift a deadlift with a question mark rounded back, like, you're going to die, you're going to snap your back, and you're going to leave bits and pieces everywhere. You're going to look like that scene from Alien. That's not how it works. Like, it takes a fucking lot to break your spine. But maybe we can make that movement more efficient. And it might just be, if your PB doesn't have a rounded back ever so slightly, or you sort of go into some area of spinal flexion, it's probably not the maximum amount you can lift. Like, you could definitely put a bit more in there. Like, I'd challenge anyone to show me a world record lift with 10 out of 10 form. It just don't exist. Like, you're allowed to be a bit sloppy in form when it's kind of that. But then that's what I said, like, drop down the weights, up the reps a little bit, or throw a few more sets in, and just work on that kind of the ability, work on the skill of a lift. And that might be a little more in your deadlifts. You're going to just focus a little more on pulling your shoulders back, puffing your chest out a little more, or like smushing your pelvis back a little bit so you get that straighter bit through your lumbar, or using your legs to drive a little bit more, or whichever bit of the deadlift you find is, inverted commas, worst, like the worst bit of the lift for you, the least efficient bit of the lift for you. Work on that. In terms of how to find that, film your sets. Don't use fucking mirrors, because like you can't see anything in a mirror. Well, you can see things in a mirror, obviously. It's a mirror. But like if you're training in front of a mirror, you can't see where you're going wrong. Like if you're in front of the mirror, you can't see anything because you're just working that same plane. So if you see something there, you can really wrong because like you've gone sideways. And if you're training next to a mirror and you turn your head to look at it, you're already fucked because you're going sideways. So like set up a camera next to you and film your lifts and then watch it back. Or like better yet, hire a coach if you know a good one. If you're on the podcast, you can't see I've got a hand up and I'm waving.
Oh no, sorry.
I'm a good coach. I can help.
Okay.
Terrible. Don't listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about. But like find a coach or like a personal trainer or a lifting gym or someone to like critique. Like critique is free. If you film your sets and you just want me to have a look at it, send them through. My DMs are open. If you say, look, this felt a bit off. What did you see in it? Let's have a chat. Like more than a conversation through it. But look at that as well as an area of progression. 100%. That's a really, really important point to make. Really important.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what you said about like just doing more of it, like the skill side of it. Something that I've seen a lot of coaches do with certain movements, so like a pull-up, for example, just put them in between sets. And like, oh, this is like, you've got like a lower body session today, but you're going to do 3 pull-ups in between each set because you can't do, if I did you 3 lots of 12 body weight, you've got no chance. And that's not how you're going to learn it. But if you do like, but you could probably do that.
Reps in between them. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So they're called feeder movements. So I put them in the program in here. So like we have, with powerlifting here, we program Monday, Tuesday, Thursday as our powerlifting sessions at the gym. And they're programmed squat, bench, deadlift, respectively. So that's the main focus of that session. But on a squat day, we might have a variation of bench, it's a feeder movement, or like a variation of deadlift. So you might have like standard squats. If you're a high bar or a low bar squat, whatever it is, you're going to do your working sets of your competition style lift. And then you've got really wide grip bench for a few lighter reps afterwards. And it's just a variation of something to feed in. So yeah, it's a similar sort of, similar kind of thing, like idea, is do the shit you're bad at. So yeah, but yeah, putting things in between sets is great, shot. Like just little bits. And like I say, it's I don't know, like more people need to do that. There's not a lot of people do. People stick to this real strict. Nope, today is leg day. Fuck off. You've got a whole rest of your body. Like, put that in there. Like, if your goal is to not be able to walk up the stairs and like trust fall onto the toilet the next day, then great. But like, it's probably not really do you much. Great. Like, try and do some other bits and pieces. Work on your weaknesses. Absolutely. Like, the more work you can put into a skill, the better you'll be at that skill. It's like, I mean, I liken it like driving's the easiest analogy to work with these things. But like, when your first driving lesson, you're all like hands and feet and mirror signal maneuver. You're all like eyes on stalks and trying to work out what the fuck's going on. Like, if you sat your driving test after your first lesson, you would have probably failed it.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you have 20, 30, 40 sessions, like lessons driving, all of a sudden you're a little bit more astute with it, and then you pass your driving test, and then you drive, and then you write your first car off, which is a rite of passage. Then, like,
I've done that yet.
Oh, touch wood. Please don't. It's not fun. But like, I've had my fair smashes. I was a fucking terrible driver when I first started driving. Now I've got a truck, so people move out of the way. It's awesome. But like, you kind of go through it, and you get better at driving. Is my point. The same is true when you're training or exercising or doing a sport, and that doesn't necessarily have to be strength sports. If you're a runner, like, you get better the more you run. You adapt your stride length. You find a better technique. You get your breathing better. Well, I don't know how to run. I'm talking bollocks. I'm using buzzwords that I read in Men's Health when I was 17. But like, all that's the same is true for whatever it is. Badminton, you get better at hand-eye coordination, whatever it might be. The more you do of a thing, the better you get at the thing. So like, the same is true when you hit a plateau in training or nutrition or anything like that. Just do more of the thing you're not that great at, and you'll get better at it. You break through the plateaus. It's just give yourself that sort of fighting chance.
Makes sense.
That's kind of it. I think that was helpful. Should we chat shit for a bit?
I imagine we probably should. What was the question about the horses?
The horses and duck, yeah. Would you rather? That was it. We had a really good would you rather session down the barn the other day, which I can't air on this because we learned a lot about each other. In like an hour and a half session, we learned a lot about each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the questions was, would you rather be attacked by one horse-sized duck or 12 duck-sized horses?
Duck-sized horses all day.
I'd take the big duck. Like, my wife's got a couple of horses because we're from Windsor, darling.
Obviously.
Got a couple of horses, and they're fucking aggressive. They've got metal shoes and everything, man. They'll fuck you up. And there's 12 of the bastards. Like, one massive duck, I reckon you could take that. Because they're not that agile. You could definitely work around it.
They're angry, though.
They're fucking angry. Not as angry as a goose, though. I've got people in the gym, and they're looking at me like I'm some sort of weirdo. What would you go for? Big duck or little horses?
Big duck.
Big duck, loose?
Joking.
Yeah, but swans and geese are horrible bastards. Ducks are like...
It's just the one swan, actually.
Just the one swan, actually. I love the amount of hot fuzz references we put in. But yeah, I'd take the big duck all day long. Horses, metal feet and big teeth.
But you can kick them. They're literally
Kick a
high.
big duck.
I understand you're not a footballer. For me, I'm just looking, I can get that horse top bins, I reckon. Whereas a big duck...
I'm looking at the big duck like my opposite number on a rugby pitch. I could fucking put you through the hoarding on the side of the pitch. 100%. 100%.
Just the amount, how many people have been killed by ducks versus horses purely on weight of horse? If a horse goes through your car windscreen, that's why you slow down when there's horses the other way.
I mean, no, valid.
If you've got a big fuck off duck with your car windscreen, you're fucked.
Mate, have you heard of like bird hits on planes? Like, if a duck flew into an engine of an aeroplane, it would crash the fucking plane.
Yeah, but sorry, I forgot about your RAF pilot days. Why are you on a plane now? You own a car, you don't own a jet.
I own a pickup truck, so it's basically the same. I'm therefore better than everybody else on the road.
Even then, the duck would hurt that truck.
I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it? It's difficult.
Not for me.
Answers on a postcard. What would you rather?
I'm drop kicking horses all day fucking long, mate.
But there's a dozen of the bastards. They're everywhere. So like, whilst you're kicking one, there's 11 biting your feet, like biting your ankles and kicking you and shit.
You're also assuming that they're violent.
They're horses. They're all violent.
But you're saying fighting. Like, who would you rather fight? They might just stay there passively.
They definitely won't, mate.
Well, I beat them. Whereas the duck? Ducks are angry, mate.
Ducks are furious because they're not geese.
And also, how much bread would you need to pacify it?
A lot of bread.
A lot of bread.
A whole bakery. Like, yeah, actually, that's a fair shout. Like, with the horses, you just throw like little bits of hay at them, they'll be chuffed for a bit. I might change my mind. I might go for the little horses now. You persuaded me. You
That's science for you, mate. That's science.
Changed my mind. Just purely on volume of bread I need to carry with me to pacify the duck. I like to think I'm fairly strong, but I don't know if I can carry that much bread for a horse-sized duck. So
Well, that's it, isn't it? Whereas you could go and make enough sauce to have with the duck once you've finished it off.
Oh, yeah. Plum sauce, like cucumber, spring onions, those little pancakes. There's a thing. That's definitely a thing. Yeah, I think you might change my mind there. I'm going with horse. I'm going little horses. That's a thing. 100%. There we go. And I think that brings us neatly to the end of this podcast. I hope you found it helpful. If you followed into the last sort of 5 minutes or so, I can only apologise, but I'm interested. Like, let us know in your comments. Let us know in the comments below. I don't really have an awful lot more to add. I think this is the bit where we're going to sell what we do to you. So if you've no interest in working with us, then you can switch off now and listen to something, more insightful, or just go and sit in a dark room and contemplate life decisions in listening to us for the last 25 minutes or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, so on Instagram, you can find us both. We're both quite prevalent on there. Charlie more so than others. I mostly just post things of like things happening in the barn and people lifting heavy shit and being really cool. Charlie actually posts quite helpful content for nutrition. And also his emails are quite funny.
Unless your name's Vinny, and then it's not.
Unless your name's Vinny, in which case, fuck you.
Yeah, well, yes.
But Vinny's awesome. Vinny knows everything.
Very mentally health aware.
Very aware. Very, very aware. So Vinny is a chap that called Charlie out, but has hashtag mental health awareness. So calling out strangers on the internet for things and then just not backing down from an argument when he's clearly wrong.
Not bad failed at life.
It's the way to go. So,
or where is that of my mental health? Not very, I'd suggest.
Not very aware, no. Not very aware. Bless him. And then there's me calling him out on a podcast, but fuck him. If you want to read that exchange, it's on one of the posts on Charlie's Instagram. You'll find him at cbnutrition_. It's worth scrolling through. It's well worth a read. You'll find me at Red Beer Barbell Club on Instagram. Like I said, we'll tail back. Here's a little callback. If you do want to film some bits and pieces in the gym and send them to me, like just for the sake of critique, I'm not about
doing that.
I don't mean like, don't send me like your weird like sex tapes and posing and shit.
You're windmilling it in the gym. And send you a video of it.
I'm not that interested. If you want to send me things of like actual workouts and things to critique, I can help with that. I can't really critique form on the other thing.
That's a genuine workout for me though.
I mean, yeah, hip thrust all day long. But like, but send me some bits if you want to like a bit of a hand on coaching and just sort of looking at form and stuff. That's free. We can have that conversation. We can work through and try and make it a little bit better. And likewise, if you message Charlie, I'll persuade him not to charge you for his time. It's very important. But if you message Charlie, you want to have a nutrition and stuff, he's quite good. He knows what he's talking about. So drop him a note. And that's kind of us. Until next time, where we'll get episode 22. I'd like to say we're going to do it next week. It's probably going to be a month. But like,
the question is, who's going to cancel when we do book it? One of us will.
Probably me. Let's be honest.
It's your turn.
It's my turn to cancel. Yeah, you cancelled on me yesterday, but that was only yesterday. Like normally, if I cancel, we put it off for about a week and a half.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, it's all good. So yeah, if any questions in the comments that you want us to cover off, any particular subjects that are burning in the back of your heads that you think we might be able to help with, by all means, drop them in our messages and we'll try and help you out on that. That we might cover off in the next episode. Awesome. Mr. Beestone, always a pleasure. Thank you for your time.
Likewise, thank you.
We'll speak to you soon enough.